Chapter 281. It was really worth seeing Chanton Susu's face contorted at my greeting. Don't waste your time with useless words. It's a matter of life and death for this side. It's a useless word. You're too harsh, I said as if I was seriously hurt. It's autumn soon, and I was going to ask if you're well prepared for winter. Speechless. Of course, Chanton Susu couldn't answer. I wasn't expecting an answer anyway. The situation in the south was obvious, and we had already been aware of it through the report. What's wrong with you? Is the harvest not going well? I wanted to rub salt on the wound a few more times, but I thought he would cry like that. I sat down in my office chair and said, Did you receive my letter? I'm here to check it out myself. Really? Chanton Sisu asked with a firmer face than usual. Did you really find a cure for the disease? The damage in the south is quite serious right now, right? I heard that the export of Sisu's grain farming has stopped immediately. Oh no, I'm just going to poke it one more time. That's what I said. You'll be punished for being so mean. No way. Chanton Sisu's voice became lower. This disease, is this black bear? Are you suspecting that I spread it now? Isn't it? It's not even worth talking to anymore. Get out. I pointed to the office door and spoke coldly. Chanton Susu, who was conscious of such a change in my attitude, apologized, clenching his fists. I made a mistake. Matriarch Lombardi, please. I am glad that you know it's a mistake. I still spoke without releasing my expression. I wasn't really angry, so it didn't matter. I wasn't really angry, so it didn't matter. If something similar happens to Lombardi one day, I suspect Chanton Susu first. Above all, the fact that the black bear, which is like a wooden stone and cannot understand its insides, makes such a mistake must mean that his body was sweet. That's why I pretended to be more angry on purpose. This was to secure an advantageous position. An advantageous position in future negotiations. I took a bunch of papers from the drawer and deliberately put them on the desk to make a bumping sound. It was a research report sent by Lombardi scholars from Lumen. Chanton Susu's gaze quickly followed. If I give you this, what can Susu give me? Chanton Susu answered my question as if he had been waiting. If it's a sure cure for the disease, it's a good price. No, no, I shook my head, picking up a bunch of papers, as if I could put it back in the drawer at any time. Do you think Lombardi lacks money? I didn't forget to click my tongue. Show your sincerity, Patriarch Susu. Think carefully what I want. After a moment of heavy silence, Chanton Susu opened his mouth. I'll stop the topographic construction of the Tamil region. I didn't react on purpose. It meant that it was still not enough. Also I promised not to open a port in the Tamil region under Susu's name. And what the hell more do you want? Arcadia. Chanton Susu's eyes became fierce with what I said. Arcadia was the territory of Susu which bordered on Lombardy and was located on the road leading to Cheshire. My condition is to stop construction in the Tamil region and hand over Arcadia to my father, Galyahan Lombardi, the Lord of Cheshire. Without Arcadia, Cheshire is no longer isolated, and naturally Chanton Susu can no longer touch Cheshire's eastern trade. That's why you can't do that for the local residents who you cherish so much. Didn't you say it's a matter of life and death? He was silent for a while. He only clenched his fists tighter. I enjoyed the silence, leaving Chanton Sisu alone, because the answer to come back was obvious anyway. I'll do that. I won. I smiled and took out the contract that I had prepared in advance. Exactly what I said a while ago was written in advance. At that moment, Chanton Susu's face showed an expression of I fell for it, but it was already too late at the latest. After that, the process went smoothly. Anyway, it was just a matter of signing 2 copies of the contract and stamping the householder seal. You can refer to this for detailed research data, and the finished medicine will be sent to Susu's mansion tomorrow. It's good to go now, I said, waving one hand. Hurry up and go out. I need to enjoy this time. Chanton Susu stood tall, holding a copy of the contract and the report from scholars in one hand, but that's also for a while. He paused as he was about to leave and turned around, rubbing his forehead roughly with a tired face. I have to rewrite the contract. The contract? Why? Here, the clause not to open a port in the Tamil region is missing. I reread where Chanton Susu is pointing. In the contract, there were only phrases written. I will stop and never resume the topography of the Tamil region, and I will hand over all rights of Arcadia to Ogalihan Lombardi. That's surprising, Patriarch Susu. I thought he'd pass like a mischievous snake. Wouldn't it be better to use your mistakes to fix the future? Then Chanton Susu frowned as if he was displeased. I do not do anything cowardly in the promises made under the name of my family, because Susu's name is not that light. It's the same for me. What does that mean? Chanton Susu, who had not yet understood my words, seemed to need an explanation. It means that the clause not to build a port in Tamil is intentionally excluded. It means that it is not up to me whether Susu will build a port in Tamil or not. But then, do you think Lombardi will be afraid of competition? I kindly added it to Chanton Susu, who is still in shock. Tamil is good in location, but it won't be easy to build a port because the river is narrow and the current is strong. Next time, I recommend hiring Lombardi Construction, which has experience in port construction. It's not because it's my family's company, but there really is no better place than Lombardi Construction to build a port. Then I'm done with what I have to say, so get out. However, Chanton Sisu did not move from the spot as if he had been nailed, and he suddenly asked me if I didn't accept the deal, what were you going to do then? It's none of my business, no matter what the South's crops will be. I shrugged and replied. Chanton Sisu looked at me like that. Then he suddenly picked up and let out a weak laugh. You're not honest. What are you talking about? What happened to your head? You lost your Arcadia. That's right, Matriarch Lombardi. Did I get caught? In fact, if the deal didn't work out, I was thinking of distributing the cure in Lombardi's name for free. Of course, while explaining that, I discovered it by accident, because it is impossible to let innocent people in the empire to suffer in the power struggle of the householders. Don't talk nonsense and go out. I am busy. Then Chanton Susu made a horrific greeting and began to take steps. Unlike a while ago, after he bowed his head politely towards me, then I'll see you at the next conference, Matriarch Lombardi. As if he wasn't tired. The heavy footsteps of the boots he was still wearing moved away. Only then did the peaceful silence fall again in the office. It means we don't owe each other because we made a deal. I got up from my office chair, remembering Chanton Susu's last word, and slowly walked towards the window. A panoramic view of Lombardy came into view. When I was young, this was the place where my grandfather used to stand when I looked up while playing in the garden. Now I look down from the window, which is also my favorite place in the office. Just then I saw Chanton Susu getting into the carriage. I don't do anything cowardly under the name of my family. That was what Chanton Susu said. I wouldn't have let you go if you just left. It's as naive as a teddy bear. That's why I can't hate you. It was a pleasure for me to be a competitor who knows the line that should not be crossed. Unchecked power is bound to rot. Shall we go back to work? After stretching out loud, I sat down at my desk again. I didn't know why a smile stayed on my lips like that. End of chapter 281. Chapter 281.5. You're late, Chanton, Paris said while looking out the window as the rain was pouring down. It's already been a long time since darkness fell. With only a few lights on, a dark shadow fell on his face. There was an accident on the way here. An accident? Yes, a short answer was all, but Paris looked at Chanton Sisu with cold eyes. A few years ago, he, who resigned himself as the commander of the Imperial Knights, never spoke useless words. Is it something I should know? I hit a drunken passerby with a courage, and when I checked the woman's identity, it turns out that she is Lombardi's illegitimate child. At the words of Chanton Sisu, Perez twisted the corners of his mouth. It was today that he finally succeeded in closing Lombardi's door, so he thought Lombardi's name would never be heard again. It was like Lombardi who was persistent until the end. Did Vich Lombardi have an extramarital affair? It is said that she is the illegitimate child of his younger brother, Gallihan Lombardi, not Vich. I haven't heard of Vich having a younger brother other than Laurel's, Perez said, remembering Lombardi's ruthless second son, the third son of Lulac Lombardi. He seems to have died a long time ago. The illegitimate child's name is Florentia Lombardi. Stop. Perez stopped Chanton Sisu's report with a single gesture. I don't have to know that. Please compensate the bereaved family well. It seems that she was living alone in a downtown Lombardy without any ties, so I don't think we need to worry about the compensation. Then that's even better. Even with the fall of Lombardy, an illegitimate child was in a carriage accident that escaped great danger. It seems like the subject is the same as the life and death of the family. With those words, Paris finally expressed his feelings about Lombardi's illegitimate child. Instead, he got up from the chair he was sitting on and asked Chanton Susu, is there any change in your decision to go? I'm just grateful that you gave me a chance to see the end of Angenes with my own eyes. Paris took the lead, nodding silently. His footsteps quickly passed through the dimly lit corridors of the Imperial Palace and entered the illuminated road of the Imperial Palace. However, only a sound of desolate rain flowed between the two men. Upon arriving at the destination, Paris paused for a moment and admired the view of the Empress Palace. He was very satisfied with the appearance of the Empress Palace with all the lights turned off and no one coming and going just like its owner. Thud thud, the sound of two wet footsteps echoed through the corridors of the Empress Palace, but no one blocked them or welcomed them. The palace should be left empty except for the two knights guarding inside the bedroom where the Empress is imprisoned. It was the command of the dignified Crown Prince Perez, who held the power of the Lambre Empire in one hand. As the two men stood in front of the bedroom door, a scream was heard with a sharp bursting sound from inside. Clink, open it. Open this door right now. However, the knights who stood in front of the door did not respond to the Empress' crying roar. They only looked at the Crown Prince with a tense face. Open it. Just one word. At Paris' brief command, the door to the Empress' bedroom, which had not been opened for the past week, was opened. Swish! Paris took a step inside and caught what was flying towards him. Grab. It was a half-broken desk clock that came into the grasp. The person who threw it was Empress Rabini Angenes, who was breathing heavily with her messy hair. She lost everything in her past to the point where she was once praised as the most beautiful woman in the empire, and now it overshadowed, and she was just a wretched sinner. Damn you, where are you? Rabini and Jenna shouted as if in a frenzy. However, her voice, which had lost all its strength and remained evil, had already rested for a long time, and the luxurious bedroom was in a mess, in the hands of the owner who could not overcome it. Paris, who looked around the room with an expressionless face, approached Rabini and Janice, who was barely standing on a round table. Crack, crack. With every step, sharp shards of glass was crushed more finely under the heavy boots. Have you made a decision? At the first words Paris said, the Empress' skinny body was startled. A few days ago, Paris, who visited the Empress' palace, gave her one option: poison and rope, how to die, Rabini and Janice. It was around that time that the Empress' madness, which had maintained dignity until then, began. I think this gave you enough time to think. Oh, that. Rabini and Janice, whose face turned pale, soon put a vein on her neck. I am the Empress of the Lumbro Empire. His Majesty is still alive and fine. How dare you? Fine? Paris laughed with a sneer. It's already been a few days since he couldn't even open his eyes. So the word of fine is too much, Rabini and Janice. His Majesty, Rabini and Janice, who didn't know the outside situation because she was confined in the bedroom, stumbled in a big shock. You devil, how to your parents? Parents? Paris asked back. Did I have parents? My mother has been dead by the Emperor's hand for a long time, and I have never had a father. The red-eyed pupil who had been slowly closed once stared at Rabini and Janus. Don't you dare to say that you are like my mother, Rabini and Janus. The Empress was not able to even breathe at will, but let alone an answer, because the life was being shot at her. There was only the sound of her grogged breath flow, flowed into her messed up bedroom. Come in. It was Paris who broke the silence that had flowed for a moment. At the low command, the two knights who had been guarding the door entered the bedroom and closed the door firmly. What are you trying to do? Rabini and Janice, feeling the unusual atmosphere, stepped back. Even so, the only thing that touched her back was the wretched bedroom wall. It was only after seeing the rope in the knight's hand that the Empress, who had been contemplating, began to beg with her hands together. Please save me. You can't do this. You can't do this to me. The Empress. Eventually, Rabini and Janice knelt halfway in front of Perez. Just save me. I'll be locked in a separate palace somewhere and live like I'm dead. So please, that's what my mother used to beg for. Perez, who cut off Rabini and Janice's plea like that, casually asked Chanton Susu, do you intend to remain? Yes, I'll do that. Upon hearing Chanton Susu's answer, Perez turned around. There was no time to watch the end of Rabini and Janice. Click. An evil scream could be heard from behind the closed door, but Perez did not look back. Walking leisurely through the deadly deserted Empress Palace, he moved toward the Crown Prince's palace. Then he stopped. Standing still in the pouring rain, he soon turned around. The well-maintained road disappeared, the trees increased, and the thick forest appeared. He walked in like that for a while. The step of leaving a mark on the barren soil stopped only when it reached the half-collapsed detached palace. A bitter wind swept his back. Climbing up the creaking stairs, he slammed the hinged door roughly. In this vast imperial palace, it was the only place he occasionally visited. A chair was placed on a seat overlooking the window, and a bottle of wine was placed next to it. It was his seat. It was his seat. A cloud of dust rose as he sat down, but Perez silently poured his drink into the glass. When the insomnia caused by the poison that he had been ingesting since childhood due to Rabini and Janet's scheme worsened, he spent a long night swallowing this strong drink. A brown liquid which was too strong that it had no place to produce it ran down from the esophagus. Despite the intense pain, his expressionless face did not change. As if wet with rain, his dark red eyes captured the Emperor's palace in the distance. It's cumbersome to do funerals twice, so maybe 2 days later. Thus the date of the death of Emperor Jovinus was set. In the end, Perez, who had emptied all of his alcohol after 2 sips, suddenly opened his mouth. Are you satisfied now, mother? But no answer came back. Perez looked down at the empty glass without any contents and closed his eyes for a long time. The revenge is over. Soon he will ascend to the throne of emperor. He felt empty. He felt like he was missing something big on the back of his head. It was familiar and unpleasant. What the hell is it? What did I miss? He asked himself. Of course, as always, he couldn't find an answer. The illegitimate child of Lombardy, the woman whose face he had never seen before, who had passed away with Lombardy today, crossed his mind for a moment, but it was just that. Perez opened his eyes again and looked out the dusty window. It was still raining in the dark. End of chapter 281.5. Chapter 282. The Conference Hall of the Imperial Palace. A place where all the central nobles gathered to discuss state affairs with the emperor. It was natural for a solemn atmosphere to flow in such a solemn place, but today's conference hall was like a piece of thin ice. The nervous nobles could not even make a sound of coughing in the atmosphere, as if they were drowning in ice water at any moment. The reason was the tense confrontation between the emperor and the Matriarch of Lombardy. This is clearly an act of disregard for the rights of the nobility. The Matriarch Florentia Lombardi spoke in a cold voice. Let's send all the noble children to the academy. It was an agenda that Emperor Perez personally brought up a while ago. If it's the emperor's order, it's natural to just follow. However, the starting point of this conference was that the Matriarch of Lombardy protested that it had a profound impact on the lives of the nobles. Let's just choose the academy to socialize the noble, Emperor Para said firmly. As the emperor who came from the academy used to mention it for a long time, the nobles had a feeling that it finally come. However, when the Matriarch of Lombardy personally opposed it, the nobles who came under her united. However, when the conference actually started, all the nobles had no choice but to shut up at the sight of the Matriarch of Lombardy, who came out tougher than expected. His Majesty and the Matriarch of Lombardy's wedding is just a week away. Is it okay? A nobleman whispered in a very low voice to the person sitting next to him. That's right, but this time His Majesty was too harsh, so it can't be helped. So it can't help it. Another nobleman joined the conversation between the two. But still, however, their conversation did not continue. It was because a fierce battle of words continued like a ball going back and forth between the two camps. Listen, Matriarch Lombardi, it's only been a year. Besides, didn't I say that there are exceptions when they are sick or in special circumstances? The duration is not important, Your Majesty. I'm talking about the fact that the education of the children of the nobles is dictated by the imperial. Do you mean that the noble families don't feel any problems with the current situation? What kind of problems are you talking about, Your Majesty? Teach me how stupid I am. The Matriarch of Lombardy said sharply, aren't social activities and opportunities for higher education limited to the high-ranking nobles? As the Matriarch Lombardy said, the nobles are the foundation of this empire, and those who are not the central nobles should also benefit. It made sense. To be honest, even the high-ranking nobles gathered here had no choice but to nod their heads to some extent. But the matriarch of Lombardy did not lose. Rather, she stepped up more strongly and asked, then, what are you going to do about the high tuition of the Imperial Academy? Not all nobles can afford that much of money. After that, there was a long battle of words without a single concession. Your Majesty, how about discussing this matter more calmly at the next meeting? In the end, the Deputy Patriarch Ramona Brown stepped forward to mediate. Let's do that. The conference was barely over when Emperor Perez nodding his head, with the lead by the Matriarch of Lombardy, a group of nobles left the conference hall, and the emperor's closest aides, the so-called Academy Triad, climbed onto the podium. They were Lignite Lumen from the East Steely sector from the Southern sector family, and Tedro Cali from the Northern Cali family. But Perez was deep in thought, not caring about them approaching. The three of them quietly exchanged glances. No matter how much the Matriarch of Lombardy is, who is your fiancé, and will be the Empress in a week, you must be angry because she protested against something as important as the Academy agenda. TN, no, you're wrong. For Perez, no matter how important the agenda is, he will never be angry to Tia. In the end, Lignite Lumen spoke carefully. Your Majesty, speechless. Didn't you think that it was a little too much from the beginning? It's not unusual for nobles to oppose it. Pedro Cali added to it. I think it is better to coordinate separately with the Matriarch of Lombardy or to try again later. Paris was still silent. The trio exchanged glances with each other again. It seems that he is really angry. What do we do? He's angry because of the Matriarch Lombardy, but he can't call the Matriarch Lombardy. It was when a stream of sweat ran down the back of the three in the ever-long silence. Paris blinked his eyes slowly and opened his mouth. Did I do something wrong? Question mark. The Academy trio's heads tilted at the same time. What the hell is he talking about? Tia's eyes were sharp when she saw me a while ago. Ah, the trio then nodded their heads. Of course it is. Emperor Paris, who reigned above all nobles, was a staunch witness in front of the matriarch of Lombardy. I'm glad you're not angry, Steely Sector said with relief. Paris asked Steely, tilting his face at an angle. What the matriarch Lombardy said is not wrong. Why should I say that? Haha, the trio wiped off their sweat inside. They wondered if there might be a resentment between the two of them with the 2 weeks before their wedding. Due to this agenda, at least they didn't have to worry about that. They were like a couple who thoroughly shared public and private affairs to the point that they sometimes wondered how they did that. While the three thought so in unison, Paris continued to mute her in a low voice. Your complexion looked bad. Are you tired? They have been supporting Paris since they were young, but they couldn't quite get used to this kind of appearance of his. It was an unimaginable scene when they thought of the emperor of the academy. No, when the matriarch Lombardi was not around. The trio smiled bitterly as if they had made a promise and turned their gazes away from the window. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I'm tired. After the conference, I returned to Lombardy and ate, and I muted involuntarily. I definitely took a nap in the carriage returning from the imperial palace. The end. The sign of a new baby here. In the meantime, I rubbed my heavy eyelids. Is it because it's spring? I have no appetite. Clattering, clattering. The sound of moving dishes, not mine, was heard quietly. It was Craney, who was eating together in the front seat. The appearance of chewing a meal with a haggard face was very similar to me. If I keep doing this, the chef will cry. I thought I couldn't do it, so I tapped the table on Craney's side and said, Craney, I know you're tired, but don't you have to eat properly to gain strength? Ah, I'm sorry, sister. Craney answered while yawning. You don't have to be sorry to me. Maybe we should both apologize to the chef. How have you done all these things by yourself? It was Craney who has been learning to help with household work for a while. As you do it, you get used to it. It's a learning period right now, so you'll put more strength into it. I'm waiting for that to happen. Craney was a bit gloomy. Is there any problem? After hesitating for a moment, Craney opened his mouth. I can't even sleep at the thought that the decisions I make will have a tremendous impact on the people of Lombardy. I don't even know if it's right for me to do something so important. It was the same feeling I felt when I first became the matriarch, a feeling of pressure, as if a lot of responsibility is weighing down on your shoulders. As a kind of senior, I thought about what to say and said, if you're dealing with the people of Lombardy, wouldn't it be right for someone who knows Lombardy well? I continued talking while looking at Crane's big eyes. And it's something that someone has to do, right? Someone has to do. Craney nodded. Besides, you are not alone. I'm there, and there are vassals of Lombardy. After that, Craney's complexion improved slightly. Yes, sister. But apart from that, our eating conditions did not improve much. Craney asked me, who was only poking food with a fork in an unfavorable manner. Doesn't my sister also have no appetite? Yeah, you're right. I'm especially tired today. Then Craney looked at me with a blank look. Why do you look at me like that? No, I thought you must be tired at times too. I'm a human being, of course, but somehow you always look perfect. Even if you say that you can't take a vacation. Oops, Craney burst into a small laugh. I am like that all these days. I am like that these days. They say it is going to be spring. As expected, it must be like that. But let's eat a little more, I said, pointing to our plate with more than half of the food still left. If the plate goes back to the kitchen like this, the chef will be sad. Then you know what happens, right? Yeah, that's right. Craney trembled. There will be a dinner party in the evening. It was like the pride of a chef. He said that if the reaction of the Lombardi family to the dishes he made seemed to be poor, it was a flow that gave a lot of strength to the next meal. A dinner party that fills a large table is scary in a different sense. Let's cheer up. Okay, sister. We made up our minds again and raised our forks. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Today's last agenda was to wrap up the preparations for the wedding with Caitlin. Because of the wedding that is getting closer in a blink of an eye, Caitlin and I had been moving through time. Only the last gabon dress remained, and today was the day to finalize the seating arrangement for the guests. It was much more difficult than I thought to properly mix the nobles with intertwined interests in one place. Is this the layout that Paris made first? Yes, Matriarch. A paper with hundreds of names written on it was spread out widely on the desk in the office. As expected, it was like Paris. As if he cared about what I was worried about, the seating arrangement was almost perfect. What do you think of it, Caitlin? In my opinion, during the brief time Caitlin explained, my eyelids got heavier and heavier. She was saying something hard, but none of the contents caught my ears. Matriarch. I'm sorry, Caitlin. I'm a little tired. Then shall I finish discussing this with His Majesty? No, I'll be awake if I get some cold wind. Shall we take a little rest? I said so and got up to go out to the balcony. At that time, my eyes flashed with the feeling of spinning. I instinctively grabbed something, but I couldn't stop my whole body from losing strength. Matriarch, the sound of Caitlin calling me seemed to be heard very far away, and with that thought, I finally lost consciousness. End of chapter 282. Chapter 283. Um, as if coming up to the surface from the bottom of the water, I came to my senses little by little. The first thing I saw was Caitlin, who became contemplated. Are you getting a hold of yourself? I think it's okay. I was lying long on the sofa in the office. Apparently, I felt the floor when I collapsed. What happened, Caitlin? You stood up from the chair and suddenly fell down. Oh, I did. I remember what happened just before I fell. I suddenly lost my balance due to dizziness. Oh, my wrist felt numb, as if I had grabbed something reflexively. I couldn't get up now. How much time has passed? About 10 minutes. Are you really okay? I nodded, but seeing my head dizzy again, even with that small movement, it didn't seem that good. I sighed once and asked, Caitlin, did you move me to the sofa alone? Yes, that's right. Who else knows about this? There's none, Matriarch. I glanced away from the line where I didn't move my head as much as possible. The office door was still closed as tightly as before I collapsed. It was the right thing to do, Caitlin. It meant not telling anyone. I looked up at the office ceiling with a little relief. The health of the Lombardi family should not leak out. When my father collapsed from Telenbu disease, my grandfather immediately kept it silent. There are businesses that each person is in charge of, and even if it is not, all the people of the empire listen to Lombardi's big and small moves and react sensitively, so it was inevitable. So information about the health of the head of Lombardi family is scarce. If rumors spread that I collapsed, just imagining it made me dizzy. Just with Perez right now. For a moment, she thought of, should I tell him? Crossed my mind, but I did. He would have thrown away all the important things and run to this place. First of all, it would be better to confirm the arrangement of the guest seats tomorrow, and I bit my lower lip for a moment, then said to Caitlin, only tell Caravan, the twins, and Craney about my condition. When Lombardi shakes, the empire shakes, so I chose the minimum number of personnel to be prepared for any unexpected events, and I would appreciate it if you tell and bring Dr. Estira through the butler. The construction of the Lombardi Hospital was also nearing its end. Thanks to this, it has been having a hard time seeing Esther's face these days. At this time, she will be at the construction site, so it will take quite a while to get to the office. Are you okay by yourself, Matriarch? Now that I'm lying down, I feel better. Hurry up, Caitlin. All right. Caitlin nodded with a still worried face and left the office at a quick pace. As I was left alone in the office, a deep sigh came out again. The world tree engraved on the ceiling of the office seemed to be getting bigger today. I raised one arm and covered my eyes. I've been feeling a bit strange all this time. My stamina dropped like never before, and I often felt dizzy. My appetite was also gradually disappearing, so my body can't stand it. I'm still young, so it might not be a serious illness. Still, if I have a disease that requires immediate medical treatment or long-term treatment, I will have a headache. Paris must be very worried. I really didn't want to see his dark face. I closed my eyes and tiredness came again, while various thoughts clung to my head. Before Stira arrived, I didn't even have time to ponder whether to close my eyes for a moment, then I fell asleep again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The conference room where the meetings of Laurentia and Lombardi vassals are usually held. 5 people sat together there. What did you say? The matriarch has collapsed. What does that mean? Gilio jumped and Clarivan hardened his face and asked back. Mayron had a distorted face as if he was about to leave his seat at any moment. Now she is regaining consciousness and resting, but she even collapsed. Mayron washed his face dry nervously with both hands. Caitlin looked at the 4 people in shock and explained in a calm tone as much as possible. That's why I'm telling you the condition of the matriarch. The gloomy air weighed heavily on the conference room. It may be because of me. The end. No, it's not you. Rainy said in... Masyadong spoilers yun. You're such a spoiler, TN. Granny said in a crying voice, because I can't learn things quickly. Not long ago, he remembered the mistake he had made. Because of that, Florenti had to work through a busier schedule for several days to get things right. Did she go to the doctor? Asked Clarivan. Then Caitlin shook her head, as if frustrated with that. There was an order from the matriarch to bring Dr. Istira. I sent someone right away, but it will take a while to get to from the hospital construction site. But then, wouldn't it be right to bring another doctor? Said Greenie. Then instead of Caitlin, Clarivan answered firmly, it's not possible. We can't let anyone examine the matriarch. Besides, on the day that the condition of the matriarch is known to the outside world by mistake, maybe Tia was worried about that and asked to bring Dr. Istira. Gilio agreed. Then he got up with Myron. I'll have to tell the captain to increase the security of the mansion, because Tia's sickness may not be due to an illness. At the last words, everyone's faces turned cold. It was just an assumption, but if someone poisoned the matriarch of Lombardy, I'll be guarding the front of the office for now, Mayron said to Gilio. There was no trace of his usual playful appearance. The twins looked at each other with no smile on their faces. Even Clarivan couldn't hide his sorrow and got up from his seat. Let's do our best in our respective positions until we have more orders from the matriarch. Everyone in the conference room nodded with heavy faces. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Knock, knock. The knock rang through the office. Come in. Taking a small breath in response to my answer, Estira immediately opened the door. She seemed to have walked as fast as possible, even if she couldn't run, because she was conscious of the other gazes. Matriarch, what the hell is this? It's nothing. I just got dizzy and collapsed for a moment. But at my words, Estira's complexion became paler. Are you saying you lost consciousness? Yes, it's only for a short time. There were no signs at the checkup last month. Why? The end of Estira's words trembled anxiously. It was clear that the names of all kinds of diseases were floating around in her mind, that to the point of losing consciousness is in a short period of time. But that's also for a while. Istira quickly regained her composure and said, I will start the treatment first, Matriarch. The examination process was long and careful. It was because Istira did not call her own students but went directly to and from the lab of the mansion to check my condition using all kinds of examination tools. Every time the number of the instruments increased one by one, I pretended to become on the outside. I couldn't help but build up a little bit of anxieties every time Istira frowns like a habit. Could it be a serious illness? But I'm still too young. By the way, my father was still young when Tellenberg disease developed. Well, while I was looking up at only the world tree on the ceiling, Estira finally organized her examination tools, and she opened her mouth, which has been closed for a long time. Matriarch, haven't you been feeling more tired lately? How did she know? That's right. It's not that I lack sleep, but I kept getting sleepy. How's your appetite? In the meantime, I opened my eyes to Estira's question, which picked up the symptoms I felt like tweezers. I don't have a good appetite either. Seeing that my clothes are a little looser, I think I've lost weight. At my answer, Istira nodded her head and as she looked at the medical record in her hand. Perhaps I swallowed one dry saliva and asked, am I seriously ill? What if Istira says yes? Now Lombardi and Perez. In a very brief moment, all kinds of thoughts came to mind. It's not a disease. Sigh. A brief sigh escaped me as if the string I was holding on had been undone. That's a relief. It's not a disease. Wait, it's not a disease? Yes, that's right. However, we expect a lot of strain on your bodies over the next 8 months. Is it my illusion that there seems to be a light smile around Estira's lips? And after that, you'll need about a year of light care, Matriarch. I didn't understand more and more. You said it wasn't a disease. What do you mean, Estira? You're pregnant. Congratulations, Lady Florentia. The end. It seems we need to wait again for the reaction of the Lombardi family. End of chapter 284. Chapter 284. Pregnant? What does this mean? I looked at Estira blankly, wondering if it was a joke, but there was not a single smile on her face. Yeah, she's not the one to joke about this. Then, really? I have checked several times, Matriarch. Then I really had a child. It is. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it, but before I knew it, my hand was carefully covering my stomach. It's a natural thing to say, but it's still a flat stomach with no changes. No, I haven't been able to eat properly these days, so I've gotten thinner. But there's a child in here. It was strange. I felt like I could only describe as strange. I asked with my hands on my stomach. How old is it, Estira? It's about 8 weeks. 8 weeks? 8 weeks is almost 2 months. It means that I has had another life in my body for 2 months. I really didn't even notice this much. It is common, matriarch. Usually in the very early stages of pregnancy, there are not many changes in the body, so it often passes without realizing it. But still, you may experience mild abdominal pain, loss of appetite, indigestion, headache, and fatigue, but this can all be taken as symptoms of overwork or stress. These were all symptoms I was experiencing. So what I'm going through right now is sickness. It looks like that. Then will it get worse in the future? Even when I smell food, I'll cover my mouth and get sick. I cannot give you a definitive answer because there are individual differences, but there are many cases like that. Ha, sigh. It's painful just thinking about it. I'm still struggling like this, but it's going to get worse in the future. Then when will the morning sickness go away? It's also individual differences. It usually disappears around 20 weeks, but in severe cases, it can last until childbirth. Did I hear it wrong? Before childbirth? Can a person live with morning sickness for so long? Seeing that my complexion was rapidly deteriorating, Stira added quickly, there are medications that can help with morning sickness. I will prepare it right away. If I take that medicine, will I feel refreshed? I keep getting sleepy. It happens when the fetus settle down. So it can't be solved with medicine. You need to take a rest. Estira, who knows me well, blurred the end of her speech. If I'm told to take medicine, I'll take it. And I'm forced to eat, I'll try it. But it's hard for taking a rest. There are wedding preparations right now, and a meeting that I can never step down as the head of Lombardi. Then, Estira said in a voice full of sighs, I will make you a herbal medicine that will give you energy. But the most important thing is rest. Matriarch, how about if you speak to His Majesty and adjust the schedule? No, my answer was firm. Don't let Perez know yet. Neither Perez nor I can back down on this agenda. That is the Academy case. As an emperor from the Academy, Perez has been preparing this agenda for a long time, so I have no choice but to do my best to defend myself. We have been fighting fiercely both inside and outside the conference hall, without an inch of backing down. But when he found out I was pregnant, I can't even imagine what kind of face he will make. But one thing is certain, he will quietly put down the Academy agenda. Never do that. The next meeting is tomorrow. If I'm lucky, tomorrow could be the last meeting to discuss the Academy case. That's what I meant. Even if it wasn't, it had to be finished before the wedding. I can last a few more days. Don't tell anyone, Estira, whether it's Caitlin or anyone, okay? At my words, Estira was forced to nod. I will bring the medicine to your bedroom tonight. Thank you. Please work hard. Estira packed all the examination tools she had brought and left the office. I was alone again in the quiet office. No, I'm not alone anymore. I lay long on the sofa and once again placed my hand on my stomach. It felt strange. It felt strange. Is it because it came earlier than I thought? I was still stunned rather than happy. I suddenly felt as if I had received a gift. A gift is a gift. It's also incredibly big. I could feel my body temperature through the thin fabric, and now there is an existence that shares this body temperature. Hi, I greeted in a small way. I am your mother. I was still quite awkward, but I continued to gather up my courage and try to talk to her. Nice to meet you. Let's do well in the future. If anyone sees it, it will be like me touring alone. I picked and laughed. Did my mother feel like this when she had me? She may not have been surprised because she was a person who saw the future. If she were still alive, I could share this moment and ask a bunch of questions like this. A little regret ensued. What kind of child are you? I'm already curious. Daughter? Son? Probably. I wish she was a daughter, but I swallowed my last words. If the child in the stomach is a son, he may be disappointed. Just be born healthy. It was a word from the heart. There was nothing else I wanted. Why is it that a mother who is exhausted after giving birth counts her baby's fingers and toes first? I'm now fully understood her feelings. What else can I say? All right, let her look like her dad. A little baby that resembles Perez. Just thinking about it makes my heart pound. By the way, what is your dad going to say? It was a very awkward to use the word dad to Perez. That's it. If I become a mother, Perez will also become a father. We, mom and dad, become parents. Okay, will you? Every time child comes up as a topic, it's Paris who suddenly becomes a wooden doll. Phew, small laugh. He must be really surprised when the academy agenda is finished. I should let him know first. That way he won't have to worry about it later. What kind of reaction will it be? I was already curious, so my mouth was tickled. Still, I hope he won't faint. I giggled, stroking my lower stomach with a touch that had just become a habit. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Next day, the feeling of the courage stopping made me feel very nauseous. Last night, I took the medicine Estira gave me, but unfortunately, it took a few days for it to work properly. Oh, it's worse than yesterday. In the meantime, I just stopped at the level of lack of appetite. I couldn't eat at all this morning. It was because the smell of the omelette, which I usually liked, came so disgusting. It was fortunate that I did not vomit at the breakfast table where my family gathered. Sister, why not postpone today's meeting? You look very unwell. Craney asked worriedly. Estira kept the secret as I commanded. Perhaps in the middle of the night, Caitlin and Tervan came and questioned her, but they had to return without getting any answers. It just seemed to be surrounded by the body couldn't handle overwork and stress. Everyone was so worried about me who couldn't even eat this morning. It was a pity that I couldn't announce the news of my pregnancy. Well, if I told the truth, it would have been even more chaotic. Perhaps as soon as I delivered the news, I was picked up by one of the twins and delivered straight to the bed. Then Perez came to ponder and come after me, and my father, who is in Cheshire, will drive horses day and night, and just thinking about it gives me a headache. At the same time, it was a pity that it was a process that I had to go through someday. I'm fine, Granny. I just get motion sickness today because I am not feeling well. But don't mind me. It will be okay when I get off the courage. By the way, are you ready for the meeting? Today, Granny took on a role next to me in telling specific reasons and figures to empower the arguments of the nobles. Yes, sister. Granny's eyes twinkled. Instead of pushing his arguments or cooking his opponents like this, Granny's specialty was to develop logic based on accurate figures and facts. Every time that happens, the facts that are presented with a particularly calming face sometimes make me shake. Okay, let's go home early today. Before the meeting, it was a word to inspire and at the same time an earnest wish. I want to go home early. Yes, sister, I have a good feeling today. Do you feel the same way? Me too. It was like that. As soon as I opened the door to the conference hall, the strong smell of food hit me. End of chapter 284. Chapter 285. What the hell is the smell? I pretended to cough and covered my nose and mouth first to understand the situation. At the conference hall where only simple refreshments were always prepared, today there were foods that could replace meals. My favorite sandwich, my favorite tea, and my favorite cake. I could tell at once who prepared these foods. Normally I would have enjoyed it happily. Let's go to our seats, Granny. The smell of the food grew stronger as I led Craney to my seat. It was really hard work, and when I arrived at my seat, more and more food was laid out. Craney whispered quietly so that only me could hear it. These are all my sister's favorite foods, right? His Majesty is very considerate. Yeah, you're right. The problem is that the timing isn't very good. I sat down on my chair, trying to breathe as shallowly as possible. As I was holding my breath, I could hear the conversations of the nobles next to me, who had completely misunderstood this situation. Isn't this meaningful? A meal instead of refreshments? Of course, His Majesty must be speaking indirectly. That's right. He means you shouldn't think about going home easily today. That's not it. You got it wrong. I wanted to say that, but now it's hard to open my mouth. Sister, are you still feeling sick? Granny asked worriedly. Instead of answering, I nodded and pushed the plate in front of me toward Granny using my index finger. But you should eat something. It's okay. I think I'm going to vomit. I was demonstrating superhuman patience just by bending down here and not vomiting in vain. I looked down at the dish that gave off the stinkiest smell on the plate. It was a sandwich containing thinly sliced ham, cheese, and apples, which was my favorite snack, but now I don't even want to see it. As I was staring at it, I was about to get more nauseated, so I hurriedly picked up the teacup. Fortunately, the sweet and calming scent of the tea seemed to calm me down a bit. I kept pretending to drink tea, avoiding the smell, but I felt the gaze. It was a very stinging gaze. Inevitably, when I looked up from the red tea water, something rather was waiting for me. It was Patty's eyes. What? When did you come? It seemed that I didn't even know he had arrived at the conference because I was holding back the nausea. What are you looking at me like that? The guy who was originally sensitive but had a more sensitive hunch about me seemed to have quickly noticed something was wrong because I haven't touched my favorite sandwich. Eventually, his gaze began to scan me from head to toe, and at first glance, his expressionless face slowly cracks. A shallow wrinkle was formed between the straight eyebrows, and the drawn eyes were slightly wrinkled, as if he had noticed something. I instinctively averted my gaze in a hurry. I turned my head so much to the point where I could hear a swish unintentionally and covered my face with a teacup. I sighed automatically. It was very uncomfortable to have to keep the pregnancy a secret from Perez, but it can't be helped. I make a face like that just by not touching the prepared food. If he found out I'm pregnant, Once again, I sighed and shook my head. At the same time, I took another sip of tea. This tea is very nice. It's something I used to drink often, but the scent and taste were especially sweet today. In addition, as the warm tea water entered, my nausea went away and the rumbling got better. Good. In this way, I should find food that doesn't upset my stomach. Although it was only a tea with no nutritional value, I was moved by finding a treasure map of food that I have never encountered before in recent years. So I didn't know the fact that Paris face who was still looking at this side, had completely hardened. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After the conference, the Emperor's office, the atmosphere was serious. In the heavy air that the ceiling of the Imperial Palace of the Great Lumber Empire was about to collapse at any moment, Paris' aides who had gathered right after the meeting were unable to even breathe properly. They were all looking at one person, Perez. After a very long silence, he opened his mouth. Let's all go out with only the three left. Three here, three here refers to the Academy trio. With a sigh of relief, all the officers hurriedly left the office, but Perez remained silent for a while. He just sat down with his long legs crossed and stared in the air with a cool face. The trio hurriedly exchanged silent glances. He seems really angry this time, right? I think so. It's different from last time. Someone say something. In the end, Lignite Lumen eventually spoke carefully. Your Majesty, although this is not the first legislation we have proposed, did you not succeed in revitalizing the Academy anyway? Then the dark ruby-like eye slowly glided towards Lignite. Flinch. He is a close friend and close aide who has been next to him since he was a teenager. He couldn't help but get nervous at Perez's eyes like that. In the first place, it was the nobles who were completely opposed to the mandatory academy education. It's certainly an encouraging achievement to start imposing the obligation of academy education on them, one per generation, for 6 months. In the end, it became 6 months. It's just like a vacation, then education to the nobles. Haha. It's definitely like that. Perez answered with a surprisingly docile answer. The beginning is important. The academy will soon become a social center for young nobles. Then more and more people will naturally complete academy education regardless of their obligations. I am quite satisfied with the results of today's conference. Well then, why do you look so dead? A large question mark appeared above the heads of the trio, including Lignite. Something's weird. So, Your Majesty, if you tell me what's weird, Tia didn't eat the sandwich. What? What to? Then yes, roughly those expressions crossed the face of the tree. Sandwich. Is this something that's serious? That the Matriarch of Lombardy didn't eat the sandwich? I'm out of breath. But to say that you are satisfied with the results of the conference, should I say fortunate? She didn't even touch it. The sandwich was directly ordered by Perez to the chef of the Imperial Palace, as always the recipe that Tia likes, and she avoided my gaze, turning her head. Are you going to Lombardy? Pedro was surprised and asked involuntarily. The Matriarch of Lombardy, who always had a piercing gaze. It's burdensome, so even if you have a face-to-face encounter, you avoid eye contact as much as possible. It was a picture that he couldn't imagine well. At that time, Steelid still pointed out the positive side. Could it have just happened by accident while looking away? But Paris shook his head, saying it wasn't, and he said with a gloomy expression on the world. She turned her head and sighed. Oh, oh, to gasp. This time, the trio had no choice but to close their mouths and blink their eyes. She doesn't eat sandwiches. She can if she's not hungry. She avoided the gaze. It can happen at any time. But continue with sigh. Perhaps Paris was thinking the same thing. He said, and touched his forehead with a deep sigh. Emperor Paris, who boasted a stronger imperial power than ever, was a complete underdog when it came to dealing with Matriarch of Lombardy. Therefore, even for the trio who looked after His Majesty the Emperor right next to them, this was never something to be taken lightly. Your Majesty, did you do something wrong? It was quite harsh to say to the Emperor, but no one rebuked Lignite Lumen, because now it was an emergency. Paris, too, could no longer hide his nervousness and washed his face dry. I don't remember that. I've been busy these days, so I haven't had much time to spend together. But you didn't do anything wrong. Can't the Matriarch of Lombardy do that? Think carefully, Your Majesty. I'm sure you did something wrong. After refusal of food, avoidance of gaze, then sighing, it's just a few days before the wedding. It was when Tedros said so. Isn't that the answer? The wedding? The wedding? The faces of the three men who did not understand Tedros' words tilted at the same time. When my cousin's sister got married, there was a period of time when she was very depressed before the wedding. What did it say, Mary Blue? Mary Blue? Is there such a thing? Lignite asked back as if he had never heard of it. I didn't know, but I heard it happens often. When you feel anxious about the future ahead of marriage, or when you regret deciding to marry. What did you just say? Paris slowly raised his face that had been buried in his hands as if to hide, and hit Tedros' waist. Even though he was so cool-headed, his eyes, which had always been filled with strong conviction, were shaking like a bird in the rain. Oh no, that's... Tedros spoke up late, but it was already too late. Paris murmured in a voice that trembled as sadly as his eyes. Marriage? Does she regret it? Oh. End of chapter 285.